Hey, everybody, it's Coach Bronson. Today's guest is Serena, the Tallow Queen. We got to give you a t shirt that says, I'm the Tallow Queen.
Oh my goodness, I so need that t-shirt. Totally.
Serena and I have we've kind of been in the space and we see each other on social media, although we only live, how far away from each other do we live? Like an hour,
Not
maybe
yeah, a couple hours, I think,
a
yeah.
couple hours.
Not too far.
We keep talking about getting together and we haven't done it yet.
Yeah, we need to do that.
But we need to do that sometime.
Yeah,
One of these
absolutely.
days, we should do these interviews like
Yes.
in person at some point.
Yes. Yes, we
So
totally should.
anybody that doesn't know why we call you the Tallow Queen or what you do or kind of what you're all about, just give us a real quick rundown on who you are, what you do, and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Just the
Um,
basics.
all right. So I have a YouTube channel called Carnivore Revolution. I do interviews much like this, and some little cooking videos and things like that. And then I started a business making tallow lotions about 3.5 years ago, actually, at my
Hmm.
local farmers market. My girls had a gluten-free baking business at the time, and they were young. Right now, they're 15 and 17, so they started when they were 9 and 11, and so like they needed me at first for the first couple of years. I had to help them, but once it got to the point where they knew what they were doing, like they didn't need me anymore. So I asked if I could have a booth too, and so I started selling tallow lotions about 3.5 years ago there. And it sold really well. Like I sold out on a weekly basis, which was really exciting. Like whatever I brought pretty much sold out almost every
Wow.
week. And so I got kind of excited about that. I just started posting it on occasion on my Instagram page, and they would sell. So then I started making reels about it and boosting the reels, and they would sell. And so I was like, okay, maybe I can do this. So I made a website and just kind of started like plowing through it. And lo and behold, tallow is a skincare product that people really like. And so I've made several different scents. I, of course, have unscented for people who just want the pure tallow. And
Hmm.
I'm trying to kind of stand apart in my business from the other tallow lotion companies. A lot of them use olive oil, jojoba oil, coconut oil, shea butter in their lotions, and I'm not using any of those things. It is literally just the whipped tallow, so it's 100% grass-fed whipped tallow. And then I do have some scented ones for people who want that. I do the like I have a anti-aging face cream which has lavender and blue tansy in it, which are both really good at reducing fine lines and wrinkles. And so like I was a wellness advocate for an essential oil company for about 13 years. So I know a lot about the essential oils and their properties. And so I'm not just like choosing lavender, like, oh, because people like lavender. I'm choosing the oils that I choose for specific reasons. And so I think
Yeah.
that stands apart just a little bit too. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to make it
Yeah.
different. I'm using emu oil in some of my things. My most recent item, an
That's
oil, a
random.
facial oil cleanser that uses wild camel hump fat along with tallow and emu oil. So, like, I'm really
Okay.
trying to stand apart and use really good animal products in them. Now,
Yeah.
again, they
Yeah.
do have some essential oils, so they do have a little bit of plant products, and the oil cleanser does have just a little bit of castor oil in it for its purifying properties. But I'm really trying to use a lot of the animal products in them. And again, doing lots of research first and choosing the fats that I'm choosing for specific reasons.
Right.
And people like it so far. Oh, wrong way. That's, I have candles and lotion and all kinds of stuff.
Okay.
So
Cool.
your box is on the way.
Awesome. I appreciate it. I know Natalie will be very, very pleased when that comes in. So, where does this come from? Why tallow?
Mhm.
Your what's it, the your channel again? Carnivore
Yeah.
Revolution,
Mhm.
right? So, carnivore, this whole animal based thing. What is that
Mhm.
all about? Explain that
Well,
to somebody who's like, why carnivore? Why tallow?
yeah.
What is that all
Um, so I was a binge eater, carbohydrate addict for
about?
years and years, eating disorders. I had disordered eating for about 35 years. Tried every diet you can imagine. I'm always fighting that last 10, 15 pounds, always. My whole adult life,
Hmm.
35 years, I struggled with those same demons day in and day out. Every diet that you can think of, from
Yeah.
Jenny Craig and Weight Watchers to the cabbage soup diet to juice fasting for 2, 3 weeks at a time. Like I've literally done everything
Mm.
you can even think of. And once I tried carnivore, like my life changed. It changed my life. The animal
Hmm.
products, the meat, the red meat specifically, but it changed my life. It changed who I was. It changed how I felt. Got rid of my eating disorders, my disordered eating. Things are just different now. And tallow was kind of a natural progression for me because of the history with natural products and being the essential oil wellness advocate. And I mean, I taught
Mhm.
classes for 13 years on how to get healthy, except I included juicing in those classes. You should definitely be juicing. Juicing is amazing. I would
Right.
do like little shots of juice at my classes so people could try the juice. But I digress. So it kind of goes along with what I do. Like, I have 4 kids, and when they were all little, I never gave them baby food. One of their very first foods was green beans out of a can with no salt added. I would carry those in the car at a red light. I would use a can opener. I opened the can, I would dump out the water, and I would hand it back to them in their car seats. Like, I never did lots of junk food, lots of fast food with my kids.
Mhm.
It was just everything was always, trying to be healthier. And once I started with the essential oils, I started realizing the products in my house, like my cleaners and my laundry detergent and the medicines. And so we don't even keep a medicine cabinet anymore. We use essential
Okay.
oils for everything from ear infections to bronchitis to the stomach bug to migraines, but we don't have a lot of that. I mean, honestly, we don't have a lot of that in our house because we eat pretty clean. I mean, my family's diet isn't perfect, my diet isn't perfect, but we eat pretty clean. And so the tallow was just kind of a natural progression. I was using an essential oil based moisturizer.
Mhm.
And when I started eating just meat and I had all this tallow and I started doing research and learning about it, I just thought, well, let me try the tallow. And so I used it for months on my own first, kind of to try it out,
Yeah.
and then decided this is a good product. It really works well. And that's when I started offering it to other people.
Okay. Now, what you had a lot of struggles over the years with nutrition, diet, and things like that. What was the change? What was it about carnivore? Right? Because people hear carnivore and go, "Oh my God, there's no way I could do that."
Right.
Or there's no way that can be healthy. Whatever the different
Mhm.
objections or
Yeah.
concerns or scare or fears or whatever, not lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
What is it about going carnivore you think that had the biggest impact on your journey?
So I'm glad you asked that because just this morning I was listening to a friend's interview on Kelly's page. I was listening to Audra's interview that was just posted. And she talks about, and everybody talks about this, like they heard about it and they started doing research, right?
Hmm.
And for me, it actually was the opposite. So about 5.5 years ago, I had a naturopath doctor here that does muscle response testing. So if you don't know what that is, look it up. It sounds like quackery, but it's not. It's really great, but it uses the way your muscles respond to certain items to the energy of these certain items I know it sounds hokey, but it really works. And I was having like a little bit of hormone issues, and he put me on a very low carb diet. He did want me to have some berries, he just wanted it to be really low carb, no starches, no breads, gluten free. He had specific, parameters, but I'm an all or nothing kind of person, and stuff like that is hard for me. Like, I think that's why carnivore works better for me than keto does. That's hard for me. I can't limit those things. And so he sent me home with this list of foods, and I just ate meat, eggs, and cheese. I did basically carnivore, with heavy
Hmm.
on the dairy,
Hmm.
but basically carnivore for about 8 months, not knowing that's what I was doing. And
Okay.
then, of course,
Yeah.
stopped doing it. And so for 3 years go by, 3, 4 years go by, and I'm having trouble with the carbohydrates and the sugar. And this was right after everything, shut down and came back open. And I had
Hmm.
put on some weight, 10, 15 pounds. I was feeling, pretty unhappy. I know a lot of people gained weight around that time. It was just, a hard time for people. And so everything's opened back up. This is maybe like a year after everything had shut down. And it was my birthday weekend. I was
Hmm.
turning, gosh, now I can't remember. I was turning 48. I was turning 48. And so I was 47 years old, and I was waking up, and like most people are gonna understand this. I was waking up and I was sitting on the edge of my bed for several minutes before actually getting up, thinking, is this what getting old feels like?
Hmm.
Right? At
Yeah.
48. I
Yeah.
was like, I don't understand why this is happening to me. I
What
don't
is
get it.
going on?
Yeah, what's going on? Like, this just no wonder people complain all the time. No wonder people moan when they bend down to pick something up. Like, I just thought that was par for the course. I was 48 years
Mhm.
old. And on my birthday that weekend, my girls, who we already discussed, had a gluten-free baking business, and their vanilla cupcakes are one of my favorite things in the whole world. So they said, "We're gonna make you some cupcakes." And I said, "Okay, double the batch," because that's where I was. And I ate 20 cupcakes in 36 hours. 20 in 36
Wow.
hours. And just to be clear, when somebody binges like that, it is not always, and the images I'm talking about of the big person, big
Sure.
person surrounded by junk food, and they're like
Right.
shoving it. Yeah,
It's not
right.
it's not a mukbang, right?
No,
It's
it's yeah. And it's not always like that's not always what it looks like. So we have that image in our heads of what it looks like when somebody's binging, and that's not always what it is. Sometimes it's simple. It's walking through the kitchen once every couple of hours and picking up a cupcake and eating it in the corner. That is still a binge. That was a 36-hour binge for me because
Yeah.
I had had my cupcake. And about 10 minutes later, when everybody else had gone, and was doing something else, I walked through the kitchen and I picked up another cupcake and hoped nobody saw
Yeah.
me. And then
Is when you're eating it, you're eating it over the trash can so you can throw the stuff away right after you so no one, like,
yeah,
yeah.
or in the corner, and then you hide the wrapper, until
Yeah.
nobody's looking and throw it away.
Yeah.
I used to go to Sam's makes that sells that popcorn, the like the black and white drizzle, I think it's called, the popcorn with the
Mhm.
dark chocolate and white chocolate drizzled on it. It is
Mhm.
so good. And I used to buy like they have a giant Sam's has the giant like family size bag, and I would buy two while I was shopping. I would eat one and eat it in the car, and then I'd get home and I'd hide that one and I'd bring in the full bag and I'd share it with everybody. And then
Mhm.
later at some point I'd bring up the open bag, and put it in the cabinet. And it would just be like, oh, I didn't know we had this, people would say, and they would get out and eat it. And I didn't eat it like throughout a week. It was that one day, this big, huge binge, and then I would,
Right.
put it away, and I wouldn't eat anymore because now I'm on a diet because I already did that for a day. Now I'm on a diet,
Yeah.
and so I've always had, well, for years and years, had that kind of an issue. And so I binged on these cupcakes. And Monday morning, it was May 24th. My birthday is May 22nd, so it was May 24th. I had just turned 48, and my husband and I went running.
We're only 3 days apart.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm the 27th.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, we'll tell each other happy birthday in May.
Yeah, there you
Huh.
go.
And so my husband and I got up and went running that day, and I came home and I just like, I was like, it's like a sugar, it's like a sugar hangover. It's
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
after a weekend of binge drinking, the way you feel is
Yeah.
horrible. Plus the shame of what I had done to myself, knowing I had probably gained a couple of pounds, like just feeling so bad about always being on a diet and never being able to like accomplish what I want.
Mhm.
And I was just miserable. And I was laying out on the porch in the sun after I had run, like just to relax in the morning. Everybody else was still asleep except for my husband. And I just thought, okay. So, well, the other thing is I had this weird post sickness issue where things tasted and smelled rotten. So that was the other side of
Mm.
it for me was many things, fruits, vegetables, garlic, onion, popcorn, peanut butter, all smelled like skunk to the
Mm.
point where it would actually make me physically ill. I would throw up from the smell. We were at the skating rink one time, and this was before the cupcake binge. We'd been at the skating rink, and we were just skating, and I could tell every time they dropped new fries, and every time they put a new pizza in the oven, I would have a sweater, and I would put some oils on it, and I would smell it while I was skating, so I couldn't smell
Wow.
because it would make me physically ill.
Yeah.
There were times I
Wow.
ended up in bed with like a warm compress over my stomach with a diffuser with oils in it, just trying to calm myself down, literally throwing up from the smell. It was so bad. So
That's
that went
crazy.
on. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
crazy. And so that went on for, at this point, that had been more than a year. And the beginning was hard. I would cry
Mhm.
every day. I was depressed. I mean, it was really hard. There were very few things that I could eat that weren't sugar filled. So lots of my girls' leftovers from the farmer's market,
Yeah.
lots of stuff like that. Like that was what tasted good. And plus, I was eating my feelings. I was miserable. It was
Mhm.
life altering to everywhere you go smell skunk to the
Wow.
point where it's so bad
Wow.
it makes you vomit. It was really
That's
hard.
a side effect of it. I have not heard of before, so that's
Yeah,
interesting.
it's called
Interesting.
parosmia, and it's the definition is distorted taste and or smell. It happens to
Okay.
chemotherapy patients sometimes.
Okay.
And the day that I woke up and I went downstairs and I said to my husband, "Oh, did the dog get sprayed by a skunk?" And he said, "No." And I said, "What's that smell?" He said, "I just made coffee." And I was like, "What?" I mean, it was
Wow.
yeah. So now I've backtracked about a year and a half, and so at this point, when I had my binge on cupcakes, I knew there were only a few things that I could eat that weren't sugar. Like
Mhm.
it was this bad. I couldn't eat chicken. I couldn't go near a rotisserie chicken. I couldn't cook chicken. My husband found me one day after work in the camper crying because my daughter was in the house making eggs and I couldn't be
Wow.
in the house. It was so bad. So that's how bad it was. It affected me every single day. And so I couldn't eat fruits, couldn't eat vegetables, couldn't eat most meats. I could eat a hamburger fresh off the grill, but I
Mhm.
couldn't reheat it later because there's some sort of chemical reaction that makes it smell
Mhm.
rotten. I could eat a New York strip, but not a ribeye. Had to be fresh off the grill. I couldn't eat a beef roast. Like there was a whole list of things I couldn't eat. And
That's
so
crazy.
I know. So now back to May 24th, I am laying outside in the sun after we ran thinking, okay, so if I need to do something here and I can't eat fruits and vegetables and I'm going to cut out the sugar, what's left?
Yeah.
And for me, it was the hamburger and the New York strip. Like, that was all that was left, and like I said, they had to be fresh. I couldn't buy the frozen ones and reheat them.
Mhm.
Eventually, it got to a point where I could use the ones from Sam's that were pre-cooked, but they weren't perfect ingredients, but I was
Mhm.
able to use those. It was a really, really hard time. So, I'm laying out in the sun thinking, "What am I gonna do?" And I have those 2 things, so I start Googling it. So, like, I had already made the decision, right?
Right.
Most people don't make the decision and then do the research, but I'm an all or nothing kind of person. And that just goes, that's par for the course with the eating disorders and the binge eating and all that stuff. Either the house is a total and complete disaster or everything is perfect. There is no in between. Either all of the laundry is done or none of the laundry is done.
Mhm.
Either I'm working
Mhm.
out really hard or I'm not working out at all. Either I'm like dieting to the death or I'm not dieting at all.
Sure.
And so I'm doing research and I'm looking, and of course I find Kelly Hogan, and then of course I find the Joe Rogan video with Sean Baker, of course, because
Yep.
that's almost everybody's first experience is that one.
Yeah.
And so I'm just watching all these videos. I find Laura Spath, and like I'm finding all these people, and I'm like, okay, so these people are living on just meat and they're thriving. Like,
Mhm.
and then the weight loss kicks in for me, and in my head, like, oh, I can lose this 15 or 20 pounds like that too. And so I was all in from that morning. I was all in. I did not deviate. I did not cheat. I did not like, that was it. I was all in.
Mhm.
And like this, a switch is flipped in your
Mm.
brain when you make a decision that serious. And it wasn't until about, like, I honestly did not even think about it for about 6 months. Like, I was just doing this. My family didn't even know what I was doing. I was cooking regular meals with the meat and the vegetables, and I was just eating the
Mhm.
meat. And nobody even knew that I was doing this. And about 6 or 7 months in, I heard Katie Kelly, a little bit of fit,
Mhm.
talking about the difference between an abstainer and a moderator. And I was
Mhm.
like, oh, I'm an abstainer.
Mhm.
That's why this is working for me. And
Mhm.
it didn't occur to me that I was better until I saw that video. I was like, wait a minute.
Let
I'm
me
not
think
having
about
a
this.
problem
Yeah.
anymore. I'm not binge eating. I'm not craving sugar. It was like it took me 6 or 7 months to even realize the progress I was making. I was just like a machine. I was
Just doing
eating
it.
my eggs for breakfast, my hamburgers for lunch, my steak for dinner.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't eat eggs at the beginning. It took months, 6 months before I could eat eggs, 8 months or a year before I could eat chicken.
Okay.
But anyway, so that's how I got here is that parosmia and only eating sugar and being a binge eater and having eating disorders my entire life. I was bulimic for 20 years. I've
Yeah.
always had disordered eating. Bought my first diet pills when I was 12.
Wow. So there's a lot of things that you've seen benefits from that had nothing to do with weight loss. That was like a
Right.
side effect
Mhm.
of, all these other things are getting better from your
Yeah.
health, mental perspective, lifestyle, that kind of stuff. And oh, by the way, I also lost weight.
Yes. That's right.
What something you said I think is really telling, and I think a lot of people I'd like to dig in a little bit. I don't know how yet, but the idea that you said you made the decision, period, right? But the second thing you said on top of that, right after that, was nobody in your family knew.
Yeah.
And I think there's a very interesting relationship there with I see it all the time with clients, and you do some coaching too,
Yeah.
right? So
Mhm.
this may be something that you see as well, is if you've made the decision, the support you require goes way down,
Yes. Once
right?
that decision is
It's
made.
when you haven't made the decision
Mhm.
that the perceptions and the support you get from the people around you need more of that. It makes more of a
Yes.
difference.
Yeah.
So if you made the decision, there is no question. I don't care what the rest of my family does. I don't care what the rest of my family thinks, what my friends do. I'm not pressured by social environments. I'm not
Mhm.
pressured to do X, Y, or Z because I've made the decision to do this and there's nobody changing my mind.
That's exactly right.
And the level of that an individual is at is
Mhm.
going to really determine how much of a challenge they're facing. If you
Mhm.
haven't really made the decision, I like to tell my clients, if you've made the decision, truly made the decision, everything from that point on is just how do I implement the decision?
Right.
I don't have to make that decision every day.
Right.
A lot of my clients and people I work with have made the decision today and then have to make the decision again tomorrow, then have to make the decision, and that's a lot harder of a process.
Yes.
Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
absolutely. And what I tell people who haven't quite made the decision yet or are having a really hard time sticking with it, and that happens for a lot of people, is don't worry about tomorrow. Make the
Mhm,
decision today. Stick with it. Get through breakfast and then congratulate yourself because you made it through breakfast. Get through lunch
mhm,
and get through dinner. And at the end of the day, you're going to feel encouraged. You're going to feel empowered and you're going to feel like maybe, just maybe, you can do it. and then get through the next day, get through breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Mhm.
Take it day by day. It's like being an alcoholic. And it really and honestly is like being an alcoholic or a drug addict if you have that food addiction past, if you have that sugar addiction past. It is definitely like those other addictions, even
Sure.
though most medical professionals won't acknowledge that.
Yeah, which I don't understand,
Yeah,
right? It meets the emotional, psychological, biological, and chemical requirements. It's all the same thing, right? Just
it
the
is.
substance is different.
It is.
So, yeah.
It's the same thing.
Okay. So how do you feel now, in the context of feeling, I like the term body confidence or feeling confident in yourself, your life, whatever. How is your confidence in your body, your health, the things that you're doing to maintain your quality of life? How is that different now than it was before, and why?
It's a good question. Honestly, I don't know. There was something about having made that decision
Mhm.
and sticking with it for a while that builds your confidence to the point where you can keep going. And so I think that made a big difference. By the time I even had to answer to anybody about it, it had already been close to a year before I had to answer to anybody
The question,
about
"What
it.
are you doing?" Yeah,
Yeah, that's what happened. Like, "What are you doing? You're
yeah.
Why are you putting butter on your steak?" Like, nobody had noticed, like, nobody even like, that's how busy we are, first of all, which is kinda
Yeah.
sad, but it like, nobody questioned it. They knew I couldn't eat the fruits and vegetables, so when I would make a vegetable to go with the steak, they didn't question it. They knew I couldn't eat that. They knew the vegetable was just for them, and it
Mhm.
didn't occur to anybody that I was just eating meat. You
Right.
know what I mean? Like, just nobody noticed, and that's no
Mhm.
fault of theirs. It's
Mhm.
just our lifestyle, the way we eat. We don't always eat at the table together. We're very busy, and so sometimes I eat my steak standing at the kitchen counter, and like just nobody noticed what I was doing and what I wasn't doing. And so I don't know. I think it helped that nobody questioned me for a really long time because
Mhm.
by that point I was already so dedicated and determined, and the brain issues had already changed so much. My mental clarity, my determination, my freedom, being free from the shackles and chains of the eating disorder for all of those years, my whole adult life. And that doesn't mean I don't think about food. It doesn't mean I don't obsess a little bit about my food. I do, except it's good food. It's good,
Let's
healthy food.
Yeah, let's dig into that. When you say freedom, what do you mean? And how does that, not even what do you mean, but being free of that, how does that change your perception or how you view your life, the world, whatever? Like, how does that change? What does that change about how you live your life?
Well, what I notice about the world and other people is that other people are highly sugar and carbohydrate addicted and have no idea. And when they
Mhm.
say something like, "Oh, I could never do that," or "I felt so much better when I was on a low carb diet. I know I need to get back to that." And then they don't do it. It
Mhm.
just goes to show the power of the carbohydrates and the sugar. So if that
Mhm.
is you, acknowledge that you have a problem. Acknowledge that the carbs and the sugar have you addicted to the point where, I mean, I know people that are sick every day, autoimmune diseases, all kinds of things, and they
Mhm.
can't get off the sugar to save their lives. Oh.
Okay.
And so if that's you, know that you do have a problem and that you absolutely should take that leap. So I see that a lot. And the way I view, like for me, the freedom is every function doesn't revolve around food for me anymore. I'm not hungry enough to eat at every function. And if I
Mhm.
do want to eat at that function, I just make sure that I bring something that everybody else will enjoy that I can eat, whether it's a charcuterie board or a meat and cheese casserole
Mhm.
or a standing rib roast. I'll take to holiday functions because that's what I want. That's what I can eat. And I will do like a homemade keto cheesecake or something sometimes so that I can have a dessert. It's
Sure.
pretty rare, but I do that every now and then. But um, for me, that food freedom is knowing what I'm going to eat, not like obsessing about it like I used to. I obsess a little bit, like, and I think we all do this. We go through phases where we eat steak every day, or we eat hamburgers every day, or we eat
Mhm.
sardines every day, or we go through these cycles where we eat the same things every day. So that it's a little bit obsessive, on one hand, but on the other hand, it's almost like a healthy obsession. So for me, that food freedom is just knowing it. Like what I've noticed is for me, it's compartmentalizing things. So I do much better if the things that I can use fit in a box. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? I think that's a mental thing for me. And the being able to eat in moderation, like everybody says, that whole moderation approach and having this plethora of foods that I can choose from, I am always going to veer towards the sugary items first, always. So even if that's something healthy like blueberries, I'm
Mhm.
going after the blueberries and I will eat all of the blueberries. If it's cherries, I have binged on cherries before. If it's I've binged on kale, for crying out loud. Kale sauteed with coconut oil. I've eaten the whole giant family size bag and then had to make
Wow.
more, and then I was sick for 3 days, like
Mhm.
sick for 3 days. And so for me, it's that compartmentalization. Like, these are the things I can eat, and I know it seems restrictive to other people, but that's my food freedom. That's my freedom.
Right.
And there is a plethora of things that I can eat. And I feel more free eating out of this box than I did when I had the entire grocery store to choose from. I
Right.
feel more
Right.
free because I had
So
more
you're
options.
Yeah, so you're limiting your what's the word I'm looking for? By you're like you're taking the distractions away. You're
Yeah.
limiting your options to
Yeah.
things you know that are beneficial. You've defined this is where
Yes.
I can be
Mhm.
and live my best life,
Right.
and without the distractions and the
Yeah.
extra stress of having to combat the temptation or
Mhm.
the other issues I have with these other things.
Yeah, and
And
that's
that's
where
yeah,
the
that's
yeah, and that's where the food freedom comes in, even though
yeah.
people think that that's really restrictive, and people say, "Why do you restrict yourself like that? That must be another form of an eating disorder." But it's really not, because my mind is free, my mind is clear. I don't go to bed crying, feeling guilty.
Mhm.
I don't have those feelings that I used to feel. I don't get stressed out about a function. I know I can fast right through the function if I need to,
Right.
because the meat and fat keep me so full. I don't have to worry about what I can eat if I don't bring something, but I always try to keep something with me, like some sort of dehydrated meat or hard boiled eggs or purse bacon. Maybe I have bacon in my
Right.
purse, or, I always try to keep those things just in case, but it's not as important. We left the house yesterday. We were going to be gone for like 8 hours. And I knew that. And I brought a little bag of some dehydrated ribeye with me. But there was a McDonald's in the little town we were going to be in for basketball. And so, like, in between, we ran to McDonald's. I got a couple of burger patties with a little bit of plastic cheese on them for, $4 or something.
Yeah.
And I ate two of those quarter-pound burgers with a little bit of that non-cheese on them, processed cheese food product. Just every now and then I do that. And I was full. Like, there are so it really just because before I wouldn't have eaten at McDonald's. I would have
Mhm.
said, well, there's nothing for me to eat here.
Right.
There was a Subway and like a Bojangles, maybe. I think
Mm,
it was
okay.
Bojangles. So it was a McDonald's, a Bojangles, and a Subway. Like, I don't eat bread. I haven't eaten wheat in about 12 years. So I wouldn't have gone to Subway. Like, I wouldn't have eaten at McDonald's. I would have ended up at
Mhm.
the grocery store with, I don't even know. I don't even remember what
Yeah.
I would have done.
Yeah.
I probably would have gotten some junk food, and eaten it, but I wouldn't have gone to McDonald's and gotten something nourishing. I wouldn't have known that the burgers were 100% beef and not fried in seed
Mhm.
oils. I wouldn't have done that. And so honestly, I have more freedom now because like I said, I just can't even remember. Maybe I would have gone to Subway and just gotten like turkey and ham and cheese with some lettuce, instead of some bread,
Sure.
because I would have thought that was healthy. But if I sit down now and compare the nutrition facts on that compared to the nutrition facts on the burger patties that I ate, even with the plastic cheese, what I ate
Mhm.
yesterday was much healthier than what I would have eaten before when I was trying to make a healthy choice and a
Yeah.
low fat choice. I would have had
Yeah.
them put some nasty fat free Italian dressing on it, and I would have been hungry in 30 minutes. I would have been hungry
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
and that didn't happen. I was full. I was satisfied. It was delicious. I mean, I used to think McDonald's had nasty hamburgers, but that's because I didn't know they were real hamburgers. You know what I mean? Like, our perception just determines so much of how we feel and what we do. And
Yeah.
so the food freedom for me to be in any small town in America and be able to stop at McDonald's and get some burger patties and know that that's a good choice now, whereas I didn't know that before. I think that's huge as far as food freedom goes. We were
Mhm.
gone 8 hours and I didn't stress about it. I knew I was going to take the girls to grab something to eat, and knew that there was a good option there. And like I said, I wouldn't have known that before. So
Right.
that freedom, that is freedom to me right there.
How has your self-image changed over the years? And this is part of the confidence question, right? It's not just confidence in choices you're making, but just your own self-confidence and uh, understanding where you are, what you're capable of, the changes you made. Like, how do you look at yourself now versus 5 years ago?
Yeah. Much more confident than I was. I wouldn't have done this 5 years ago. I would not be sitting here talking to you on camera knowing that it was going to be put out there, for the world to see. I wouldn't have done that. But I think becoming a carnivore and stepping out there and
Mhm.
being so different than everybody else. I was just talking to Jake Thomas about this the other day, Life Like Jake, and I told him that um, being on the carnivore diet has set me apart from my my friends and my family and my normal life more than any other decision I have ever made,
Mhm.
ever, because everything revolves around food, and I'm the one that's different. I'm the
Yeah.
one, and I think in a way that's a little bit sad, right? But I'm still friends. I mean, everything is fine, it's just that I'm different
Mhm.
than everybody else now,
Mhm.
and that's okay. But I do feel bad that they aren't, that they are sick and dealing with all the things that they're dealing with: high blood pressure, autoimmune diseases, arthritis, it's not feeling good all the time. That sets me apart because I am not like the other 50-year-olds that I know.
Yep.
I'm not like some of the other 35 and 40-year-olds that I know who are
Yeah, for
dealing with
sure.
all of
For
then,
sure.
and they're taking medications and all of that. And so the confidence is huge. The fact that I can do this, that I can talk to people about it, it really does. It changes your mind, it changes your brain, and being able to stick with it every day, as hard as it is when you don't want to, when you want to have a piece of pie like everybody else,
Mhm.
that's what builds your confidence and makes you stronger and gives you the will to keep going. I think every day that you do it when it's hard makes you want to get through the next day.
Okay. How does that translate into life and dealing with things in life?
I don't eat my feelings anymore, because I'm not, when I get upset. Now there are times, because for 35, 36 years, that's what I did. Was I went for the donuts, I went for the cinnamon rolls, stuff like that. And breaking that addiction is hard, but I think that not eating my feelings is huge. When I'm upset, I don't want to go eat 20 cupcakes in 36 hours
Sure.
anymore, and I'm so full and satisfied that I don't crave those things anyway.
Mhm.
So I think that's a huge part of it that people really underestimate, is how much of a difference it can make in your life, like that, being in
Yeah.
control of your food and choosing to eat the right things.
So you've used the carnivore diet as a way to heal yourself from physical issues, a way to kind of help create an control your environment in a lot of ways, so you can work through the disordered eating issues, things like that. You've seen benefits in both of those things. Your health has improved, you've lost weight, you have a better relationship with food, you're able to control your environment and live a better lifestyle that's less stressful and complex. Do you think that what do you think is the best? Well, let's see. I don't want to say the best. A lot of people will hear this and be like, there's no way I could do carnivore.
Mhm.
There's no way I could do that. I'm not that kind of person.
Mhm.
I can't either. I'm not an all-in person, or that's too extreme for me, or
Mhm.
whatever else. Is carnivore what everyone should do? It's
In
worked so
my
well for you.
Right. I do think that everybody should do carnivore for 30 days,
Mhm,
60, maybe 90, but commit
mhm,
to 30 days and do it. Don't sit around saying, nothing works for me, I've tried everything, and then give it half of the effort. Like,
okay.
really, really do it. If you have to commit to 7 days first, commit to 7 days. But at 7 days, you're probably not going to feel as good as you'll feel at 30. So it's really important to give it that 30
Yeah.
days. I think I know many people, as do you, I'm sure, who commit to 30 days and end up doing 90 because it feels so good, right? I do think everybody should give themselves that chance, 30 days if you think that's all you can do, and then add things back in one at a time so you can see how things affect you. I don't think everybody needs to be a carnivore forever. I do, however, believe in my it's almost 3 years of research, and it's a lot of research. I mean, as well as I do, that when you are listening to, and maybe people will balk at this and say, yeah, but that's not research, but listening to podcast after podcast, watching video after video, that is research in my opinion, because those are n=1 experiments. Those are real people that I can see, that I could probably call if I wanted to and
Mhm,
say, talk to me about this, talk to me about your experience. How many friends, people who don't really know anything, or people you found on the internet, have you taken advice from over the years? Thousands, probably, right? Somebody
mhm,
recommends a new pair of shoes, and they talk about how good they are. You say, "Oh, I want to try those shoes," right? But
yep,
most people don't do that with something like the carnivore diet. So I think though that everybody should do it for 30 days and
mhm,
then add the things back in, because that's how you're going to find out what bothers you. So I had cut out coffee with that whole smell issue, which by the way is resolved. It resolved itself about 6 months ago. I woke up one day and everything smelled normal. I cried for about
Yay.
10 minutes, opening up everything in the refrigerator, smelling garlic and onion and peanut butter just to see what smelled normal. And everything was fixed. It comes and goes a little bit now. But in any case, I had given up coffee because of that smell and taste issue.
Yep.
And after about a year and a half, when that very day that I woke up and everything smelled normal, it was like this epiphany. I thought, because I would get out the peanut butter like every couple of days just to smell it and see if it smelled normal, and it just
Yeah.
always smelled rotten. And this particular day, I went to the jar of peanut butter and opened it, and I was like, that smells like peanut butter. So I went to the fridge. I started pulling out salsa and spaghetti sauce, and I stood in the refrigerator sobbing. And then I immediately went to the coffee machine and made myself a cup of decaf because yeah, coffee was like I used to look forward to my coffee when I would go to bed at night. Like
Yeah.
I was a coffee drinker, just 1 or 2 cups a day, but I was a coffee drinker.
Yeah.
And I had had coffee maybe twice after I gave it up. And I thought I was going to have a heart attack. The anxiety that it created in me from the caffeine and stuff. So I immediately went for decaf and enjoyed that cup of decaf immensely. It was absolutely delicious. But what I noticed is that it makes my left thumb hurt.
Interesting. Very
Really weird.
interesting.
I have
Yeah.
no pain in my left thumb. I drink a cup of decaf. I have pain in my left thumb. So, my
Wow.
point in telling you that is that's how you can decide. So, you give everything up except the most anti inflammatory foods, which are meat, and then you add things back in one at a time. Like you think, wow, really miss broccoli, even though I don't think most people miss broccoli. Wow, really miss broccoli. And you eat a little bit of broccoli and you realize the bloating and the gas and the stomach ache and the extra going to the bathroom. And you think, oh, well, I don't really want to eat broccoli, And then you cut broccoli back out. And then you might think, well, I'd like to have a pickle every now and then. And you eat a pickle, and a pickle is probably one of the, least bad things you could eat. And pickles agree with you. So now you've added pickles back in so you can put those on your hamburger patty. But I guarantee you, if you add back in a bun and ketchup and lettuce and tomato and onion on your burger, you're going to feel it the next day or
Hmm.
later that day.
Hmm.
And so I do think everybody should be on the carnivore diet. And then after that, I believe everybody should be on a low carbohydrate, almost zero ultra processed foods
Yeah.
diet. And I
So
think,
you're talking about doing basically measuring and tracking, right? I mean, you're
um,
saying an experiment, right? From the perspective of you're you're measuring and tracking. I'm taking these things out. I'm going
mhm,
to eat only these things,
yep,
right? So you're measuring. This is
mhm,
this. You're setting a baseline,
yeah,
and then okay, this is what I've done for 30 days. I'm going to add this back in. I'm going to track what happens in my
mhm,
body.
yeah,
Oh, I don't like that,
right,
right? So now I have data that
right.
says, "Oh, okay, check that box on the nope, I
That's
don't
right.
like it list."
Hmm.
And I eat a pickle, and that's fine. Check that box on the that was great list.
Hmm.
So, and when we talk about measuring and tracking, it's one of the concepts that I think people confuse with. I have to write everything down,
Yeah.
and there is a level that could be beneficial for, but you can't do an n plus one or an n equals one, excuse me, without data.
Right.
So even just saying I'm doing an elimination diet where I'm only going to eat meat and eggs for 30 days,
Hmm.
and then I'm going to add something in, that is measuring and tracking. And I don't
Yes.
think people make that connection because you're
No.
you're you're gathering data. It's a science
Yeah.
experiment.
And if you did that, if people did that for 30 days and then added things back in and paid attention to the cues from their body, 99% of the pharmaceutical companies would go out of business.
Oh, for sure.
That's
Yeah.
really what I believe. I believe if everybody did the carnivore diet as an elimination diet and then added things back in as they saw fit and only added back in the things that made them feel good or didn't make them
Mhm.
feel bad
Yeah.
and kept out the processed foods, oh my God, your
Yeah.
health will skyrocket if you just do that
Crazy.
for yourself.
Yep.
And it's not that hard. You have to acknowledge the problem. You have to acknowledge that you've been duped, that you've been tricked by the pharmaceutical companies and by the big food companies.
Mhm.
Can we talk about the bliss point for a minute?
Sure.
So the bliss point is, and I try to say this all the time because I think people need to understand that it is not that it's not your fault. I mean, I think I don't want to go there. Not that it's not your
Yeah.
fault if you are way overweight and really unhealthy from the processed foods, because it's still your fault. You're still making that choice. But what you may not know is those foods are made to be addictive. So don't say they're not addictive. Don't say you're not addicted to those things. You absolutely are. If you have said multiple times over and over again, I'm going to go on a diet, or I'm going to give up sugar, or I'm not going to eat foods out of a package anymore, and you end up back at doing all of those things, that it's your fault, but it's not your fault. That's a slippery slope right there,
Well,
because I don't want to say it's
you
not your fault, but
yeah, so Well, I'll go finish your point, and then
Okay.
we'll talk about the
Those
fault.
big food companies have actual scientists on the payroll that work for them that create
Yeah,
what's called the bliss point. It's the exact amount of fat, sugar, and salt that keep you coming back for more. And there are people whose hands shake every day for 2 weeks as they are coming off of
coming off of
those
something.
kinds of
Yep,
foods and off of the sugar.
yep,
So while it's not your fault that those foods exist, you have to acknowledge that there's an addiction in order to be able to eliminate the problem. So just going back to them over and over again and saying, I don't have enough willpower to stick to my diet. I don't have enough willpower to do this. You have to know that this is the problem and use that as a tool to get yourself off of it and feel tricked. You should feel
right.
mad. You should be irritated. You should be upset that those companies are killing us and
Mhm.
that they're allowed to do it by the FDA, according to the FDA and stuff.
Yeah, I think the fault issue or the fault conversation, until my take on that is, if you don't know, it can't be your fault.
Right,
And there's a lot of people that are in the position that they're in, they just don't know. They think many people think they're making good choices,
right,
and that's where the feeling tricked comes in, because a lot
right,
of foods are sold as being healthy, and they're the exact opposite. They're the
correct.
exact
Yeah,
same food, just made worse.
yeah,
Or the exact same substance. In many cases, they're not even food. But once you start digging into why are the things happening to me that are happening to me, and how do I get out of them, then you start realizing what's going on. That's when you make the choice. And that's what's so powerful with the measuring and tracking and doing the
right.
elimination diet
Mhm,
and trying to do this. Hey, let me cut all this stuff out. I'm just going to eat the most nutrient dense foods possible for 30 days. Now you know, now you have a baseline, you have the knowledge.
mhm.
Everything from there, good or bad, is your responsibility.
That's right.
You now have an opportunity to take ownership of your journey from that point on. And that's what's so important about that.
Yeah, so important because you have to acknowledge that you have a problem in order to move past it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the whole
Yeah.
thing with AA, with those kinds of addictions is you have to acknowledge that you have a problem. And it is the same way with food. It is. And with food, it's done on purpose. They do it on
Mhm.
purpose so they can make money off of us
Yep.
buying their foods. Now, is there
Yeah.
some big conspiracy going on with the pharmaceutical companies and the food companies? I don't know. I don't know that it goes that far. But definitely the pharmaceutical companies are not upset that we need all the medications that we need from eating all of the
Right.
processed foods. And so I think people have to know about the bliss point. They have to know that we we are doing as Americans, we are doing exactly what they want us to do. We are getting sick from eating their foods. They
Yeah.
they want us to eat their foods.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and you have to want to be part of the solution instead, and the only way we can get the message to them that they need to stop making the foods that are addicting our kids starting at 1 year old. They're addicting our kids,
Hmm.
sometimes earlier than that, but they're
Hmm.
addicting our kids, they're addicting adults. We are the unhealthiest as a nation that we have ever been. And what has happened? People have eaten less meat because they're told that it's bad for them, and they are eating more processed foods and carbohydrates because that's what's available.
And
And
seed
people are getting
oils.
sicker and sicker. Yeah, and the seed and vegetable oils. By all
Yeah.
means, give up the ultra processed foods. Those are the foods in the middle of the grocery store that come in a package with a list of ingredients this long. And if they have vegetable and seed oils in them, if you gave up the ultra processed foods and the vegetable and seed oils and the sugar, you would already be getting healthier. Like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
literally by the day, you'd be
Yeah.
getting healthier.
Yeah. And that's a good point. Is this, there's a spectrum of improvement, right? It doesn't have to be like, okay, so we talk about, okay, everyone should try carnivore for 30 days. Maybe you're not ready for that.
Mhm, right.
Maybe you just need to stop buying food that has a label
Yes.
and just go whole food. You
Hmm.
want to keep eating your green beans, you want to keep eating your Brussels sprouts, your whatever, go for it. Have a
Go on.
blast.
Yeah.
Just make sure you're getting that stuff fresh. You're
Right.
cooking it in a way that it's easy to digest. You get
Hmm.
your meat, you get your eggs, you eat your butter, your cheese, or whatever. And you do all the normal stuff, balanced diet, but don't do it from anything that comes in a box.
Yeah. And if you're cooking those
And make it
vegetables,
yourself.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're cooking those vegetables now in something like Crisco or vegetable oil or
Yeah.
whatever other oils people use, you go to olive oil or butter or
Butter or
tallow
tallow. Hey.
or tallow because so like people have this mentality about, well, vegetable oil is better because it comes from a vegetable. It is not.
It's
Look
not
up a video on how they make
how
vegetable
they
oil.
make
Think
that. Oh
about
my
that for a
God.
minute.
It's horrible. Yeah.
Think about it for a minute. Vegetables don't have oils in them. Most of them don't. Most vegetables are fat free. So imagine the sludgy, disgusting, horrible process. They started out as like car oils and then decided we could cook with them. So just think about that for a minute
Yeah.
and use something whole and natural, like a really good olive oil or butter or tallow. Because if you're of normal mindset and mentality, a fat is a fat is a fat, right? So if you're going to cook in a fat, you might as well make it as close to its natural state as possible. So
Right.
definitely use something like that. I don't use olive oil. I do eat sardines that have olive that are stored in olive oil, but
Mhm.
I always just use tallow or butter. I mean, butter. Come on, if you're going to use if you're going to use an oil to cook your vegetables anyway, use butter, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
it's gonna
it doesn't
taste
work. It's
better. It's
natural.
got more stuff in it that's good for you for sure.
Yeah. So it's got vitamins in it. It's not going to cause inflammation. And so that's one step you can make. You already have butter in your house. If you have vegetables and you're thinking about starting something
Not
different today,
margarine. Butter, not margarine.
not margarine, please, not
Right.
margarine. It's what is it? What is that thing that I always see going around? It's one molecule away from plastic.
Plastic, right.
Yeah, I mean, that's gross.
Yep.
So just think about that for today, baby steps. Maybe you don't have to be all in, you don't have to be a carnivore, but you give up the vegetable oils and the processed foods today. Today,
Yep.
you say, I'm not going to eat those things, and you will feel better tomorrow. Well,
Yeah.
maybe not tomorrow, maybe the next day, because you're going to have some withdrawals. I mean,
With the withdrawal.
that's
No, but that's a good way to talk about sustainability. That's a good way to talk about making the change approachable. It doesn't have to be this
yes,
gigantic, massive shift, right?
yes,
It can be take one or two things out and see how your body does. So
that's
there's a
right.
lot of different ways to approach it. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
absolutely. And a lot of people will say, well, if I have to give up coffee, I'm out. Okay, so don't give up coffee. Keep your coffee.
Right.
You need to keep a diet soda every day because it keeps you off of sugar. Keep the diet soda. I mean,
Yeah.
I just think, and yes, that's an ultra processed food. Yes, that's true. So I'm not contradicting myself though. I'm saying eat all the meat, eat all the butter, eat all the eggs, eat some cheese, enjoy
Right.
those foods, the foods that you've been told to restrict all these years. It's fun at first. I
Hmm.
mean, it continues to be fun, but especially in the beginning, you're eating all these things and you're like, how can this be healthy? But
Right.
if you keep the sugar out and you keep the ultra processed foods out, but if you do need to keep like that one thing, try to make it something that doesn't have sugar or carbohydrates in it,
Hmm.
because that's just going to prolong your withdrawals. But I talk to people all the time that say, but what about my diet Mountain Dew that I have with my lunch? I don't really think I could give that up. Okay,
Right.
fine. Eat your meat and have the diet Mountain Dew. Like, do what you got to do. To eat. Kelly Hogan for the first 5 years drank diet soda, and she still was super healthy. She was able to reverse her health conditions and have children where she couldn't have children before. Like, if you
Yep.
need to keep something, because then what happens is you start to feel so good, you think, well, how good would I feel if I gave that up?
Right. Then it's
And
like, okay,
eventually,
what else can I do? That yeah, what else can I? It
yeah,
builds
that's a
on
natural
itself.
progression that
Yeah.
happens. And
Yeah.
so I think give up what you can because you're going to notice a difference and you're going to start to feel good. And then you're going to say, maybe I can give up these other things too.
Hmm. Hmm. Awesome. Okay. Well, thanks for being on, Serena. I appreciate it. This has been a
Absolutely.
great discussion. And for those anybody that's interested in carnivore, I think you got some good information to share and help people get started. For anybody that's just looking at what's the process, how do I make it any kind of improvement based on my nutrition choices? I think we talked about some things that can help people understand it doesn't have to be black and white. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. There's some ways you can build towards
Mm.
something that's better for you as an individual. So I think that's awesome. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you.
You bet. Where can people find you other than you said it's Carnivore Revolution on YouTube?
Yeah.
Is that what it is on Instagram as well?
On Instagram, it's serena.carnivore. And then I also have a Purely Tallow page on Instagram
Okay.
and a Purely Tallow website, purelytallow.com, where you can find all my products.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Fantastic. I'll make sure that all that stuff gets in the
Thank
description.
you.
Any last thing you want to leave with anybody? With everybody?
So much advice. I think if you're if you're still conflicted on something like carnivore or low carb, or you're still sitting there thinking, oh, my doctor will freak out, my cholesterol will go up, blah, blah, blah.
Hmm.
Read Nina Teicholz's book, The Big Fat Surprise. I think that book really lays out, I've read it 5 times. I've listened to it 5 times. Every time I listen to it, I get madder and madder about how we got, excuse me, about how we got to where we are. And I think if you just sit down and listen to something like that, a book like that, that explains how we got to where we are, why we're afraid of fat, why we're afraid of red meat, it will change how you feel and you will immediately eat a steak with butter on it.
Mm.
And if you and that's your homework assignment is to eat a steak with butter on it.
There you
Because
go. Yeah.
that book is just a huge eye opener. It can really teach you where we went wrong as a society
Hmm.
and why that
Yeah.
happened and why we should be adding those meats back in. I mean, think about it for a minute. Just use common sense just for a minute and think about the facts. What is that Tufts University study that showed
Mhm.
that like Fruit Loops or Honey Nut Cheerios is healthier than a
Yeah.
steak? I mean, honestly, just use some common sense for a minute and take what you want and take your cravings out of the equation and just think, could a cereal really be healthier than a steak? Right? I mean, like, I think that's so reading Nina's book will really walk you through how this happened and make you go out and eat something that you haven't eaten in a long time because you've been worried
Yeah.
about it unnecessarily. So I think
Yeah.
that would be my assignment for people would be to read that book, and then watch a bunch of videos. Watch us, watch my stuff, watch Coach Bronson's stuff, and watch Kelly Hogan and Ken Berry and Dr. Chafee and Dr. Baker. Watch those people, Laura Spath, listen to what they have to say, use their experiments on yourself and say, look at how they're thriving. What would happen if I tried that for a little while? You're certainly not going to hurt yourself in trying it for 30 days. Nothing bad is going to happen to you in 30 days that hasn't already happened from eating the garbage that you already eat.
Yeah.
So give yourself a fighting chance. Just
Yeah. I
do it
like
for
it.
a little while.
Yeah. And even if you don't become carnivore,
Mhm.
if you start eating more animal-based products,
Yes.
eating more meat, you're gonna see an improvement.
Yes, and you're gonna eat less
You
of
know?
those other things because 'cause you're not gonna be as hungry.
Yeah.
So
That's a
just
whole
try
nother
it.
discussion we can talk about. That's we could probably do another whole talk on
We could.
the biology of what happens when you eat meat.
Yeah. Mm.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for being on. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we will definitely I think I'm coming on your channel next
You
in a
are.
few
Yep,
weeks,
couple of
right?
weeks. Yep.
Awesome. Take it easy. Thanks.
You too.